This camera, honestly. It's supposed to have a bleep on it that shows you that it's recording, so I don't know if it is or not, so we'll try. But I was watching, it's on YouTube and it's called Reddit, and there's another one called, I think it's Radio TTS or something like that, and people share the stories on there, and some of them are quite funny. And I've just listened to one about what's the worst date you've ever had, and it triggered me into this laughter because I thought, oh God, I've had loads. So I thought I'll do one on mine. So this is really funny. I'm going to go back to the 1990s. This is the days before the internet and the days before mobile phones and everything, so you didn't have Twitter and Facebook and POF and all this sort of stuff. So if you were single back then, how did you meet people? Well, it was partly through socialising, so you would go to a nightclub or you'd meet them at work or whatever, and that's, or through friends, you know. So that was generally how we got on back in the day. And we were more sociable back then as well. Even the quiet people like me tended to have some kind of social life because there wasn't much more to do at home, sort of thing. So I remember in the paper, in the Courier, we all used to read the papers, and they always had the classifieds, and in there was a dating agency called Anvil, and they always put an advert in, and they'd say meet local people to you and all this. And one day I thought, I'm going to join that just for a laugh. So I'd been in my early 20s at the time, and I joined it, and it was something like £25 for a year or something like that. But they says to me, you can join for free, we're not going to charge you anything because you're the one of the few women who were in it, because it was mostly men at the time and middle-aged, and because I was a young early 20s woman, they're like, that's what these guys are looking for, so they let me join for free. And what you had to do is send in a photograph of yourself and a description, and then they would put it in like a booklet. Now, if you've ever had one of those like parish magazines from the church, you know, these little paperback little things with about 12 pages in, it was like that. And so you had people basically advertising themselves, and some of them did not have photographs, so it was just a description. So I'll tell you a couple of them because they're just too funny. These are hilarious actually. So at the time, what we decided to do, me and my friends, is we've got to keep safe, so double dates, right? So what I used to do is say to the person that I was going to meet, I'm going to bring my friend, if that's alright, or I would arrange for my friend to be in the pub, so they'd be sat at the other side of the pub watching over, just for safety, because I've always been mindful that there's some creeps out there. So I thought, I'm going to have to be careful. So I went on loads of dates. Oh my God. So this one, this is the one where I met this geek. I don't know, it said, his advert said something along the lines of 26-year-old man, handsome, solvent, intelligent, works full-time, seeking kind, attractive lady for romance. It was something very generic like that. So I thought, right, just go and meet him. So I met him at the train station, and when I saw him I thought, that ain't him. And he's looking over at me, and then he came over and he went, is your name Kelly? And I went, yeah. And I said, are you Tom, or whatever he was called? And he went, yeah. And I went, right. And I thought, oh crap. Straight away I thought, no. But he hadn't had a photograph. So anyway, I thought, out of politeness, we'll go to the pub. So we sat there, and he was really quiet, and he was sat really like stiff like that. So I end up doing all the talking, and I'm babbling on about everything, and I said, so why did you join the agency? And he went, well, my mum did. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it was my mum who put me on it, not me. And then he went on to tell me that he lives at home with his mum. He's 27 or whatever, and his mum's had enough of him. She said, it's time you got out of here. And he said he worked as a shelf stacker. And he said, I work in the freezer department, and sometimes they play tricks on me, but I know it's a ghost. So, and I'm thinking, right, okay. And while we were talking, he said, can I just go for 1 minute? And I went, right. And we didn't have the mobile phones, but they did have a phone on the bar. And he went over to the phone on the bar. And completely forgetting I can hear everything, you know. And he stood there on the phone and he's going, Mum, yeah, she looks alright, yeah, she's alright, she talks a lot, yeah. And I'm sat there thinking, you're phoning your mother while you're on a date? And then he went, I don't know, I'll have to ask. He said, oh, right, okay, right, what else shall I say? So she was telling him what to say, and I'm thinking, oh my God, and I'm sat there trying not to laugh because I thought, this is crazy. My friend had come into the pub and was sitting opposite in the corner watching, and she's going, what? And she's laughing because she's going, look at him, he's, no. And he comes and sits down and he went, right, okay then, let's just put it up, the cards on the table right now. Are you going to marry me or what? And I just went, I beg your pardon. He said, are you going to marry me? And I just looked and I looked over at my friend and I'm like, he wants to marry me. And she could not stop laughing, and she came over and she said, what's going on? And I said, he wants to marry me. She said, why? And he said, well, it isn't me, it's my mother. And I'm like, oh my God. So on the phone, his mum had said to him, you need to get married, get wed, get her, just tell her you're having her, sort of thing. And I thought, you cheeky sods. And I thought, how dysfunctional your family is that? Your mother joins you into an agency, sends you on a date with a woman, then you phone her, and then she tells you what to say and says, right, get married to someone you don't even know. And I'm like, oh no. So I spent the rest of, like, the next couple of hours trying to get rid of him, and he wasn't having it, you know. He was telling me lots of stories about himself, and I'm thinking, I'm just not interested here at all. In the end, my friend did me a massive favour, and it was just too funny, and she turned around and she went, look, you and Kelly ain't got no going on here. You might as well go out with me. So he just turned his back to me and looked at her and went, okay, so what's happening? And she said, I'll meet you tomorrow at 7:30. And he went, okay. So she ended the date for me by putting a cell phone on with him, and then she never turned up. Rotten bag. But anyway, she got rid of him for me. But that just showed you, didn't it? Now, one, his mother told him what to say and what to do, and he just went with it. And then my friend came along and said, you can have me, and he went, all right then. And I'm like, how flattered am I, or what? So that was one of them. And then I phoned the dating agency up because they asked me to keep him in touch with how things went on, and I said, it's a bit of an hard one, this, because you're meeting people and you don't know what they look like until you get there. And what does attractive mean? And intelligent, because everybody's got their own idea of what that is, because I'm not meeting people that I think of any of it. So, oh gosh, I arranged a date, and last minute I couldn't go. And he'd done this he sent me a letter, because that's what we used to do, we used to write letters. So you had to write through a PO box, and then you'd get the letter through the agency, so only they had your address. And this bloke sends me this letter, and it's massive, like 3 pages long, telling me about all his life and how great he was. And he sounded great. And I'm thinking, sounds really nice, cool, intelligent, funny, witty. But I couldn't make the date, and we didn't have a phone. So I couldn't phone him and say, I can't go. So it was really bad, and I thought, what am I going to do? So my friend Debbie said, I'll go. I'll just do it for you, and when I get there at the town hall, I'll just tell him you can't make it, and he'll understand, and it's fine. I said, if you want to go out with him, you go out with him. And she went, are you sure? I said, yeah, I don't know him. She goes to the town hall to meet him, and this is her story now. She said, I stood there. She said, and I'm holding this little note, 6'3", handsome, brown hair, blah, 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 blah. And he was stood there with his little list, 5'8", slim, because I was then, blah, blah, blah. And she said, when she came back, she said, I was stood there at the town hall, and there was this guy down the road, and he kept looking up, and I kept looking down. She said, and nobody else was coming, and I'm thinking, he stood me up. She said, he hadn't stood me up, he stood you up. He hadn't come. And I went, oh, he sounded keen. I'd expected him to have come. She said, I thought he ain't coming. And then in the end, this guy walked up to her and he went, look, he said, my name is so-and-so and I'm here to meet Kelly. And she went, right. At that point, she said, I wanted to get on the bus and go home. But I thought, fine. So, but she said, look, I'm not Kelly, I'm Debbie, and I'm here on her behalf. She can't make it. I'm really sorry, she can't make it. She's told me to come and say sorry. And he went, so, you know, right, okay. And he said, I best get off. And she said, it says on here that you were, hang on, 6'3", handsome. And he went, and she said, you look like you're about 5'4", and you're not handsome, and you've got no hair, and it says you've got brown hair. So what else are you lying about? So they started arguing, and they ended up having a big set to outside town hall, and she's saying to him, you were lying to my friend about everything. Anyway, they ended up getting together, which is hilarious. I don't know why. She said we argued until we just ran out of steam and then looked at each other, and he went, do you want to come for a ride in car then or what? And she went, have you got a car? And he went, yeah. She went, well, that's good then, because we come from a council estate and we didn't have no money or no. So she says, he had a car, so I got in it. And he took her at Moors. And she said, we stood up there and all that, and we're having a chinwag and all that. She said, he wasn't attractive, but he was quite funny, and we had a bit of a laugh. She said, but then he said, do you want to come back to my place? And she was like, you've got a place? And he went, well, yeah, I've got an house. She said, Kel, I was so chuffed. I thought, I've finally bagged a man with a house and money, because we never had no. And off she goes to his house, and she's got there. She said, we were sat there in the dining room, and he's getting all best china out, and he goes, do you want a coffee? And she's like, yeah, yeah. And he's giving her all this stuff, and then suddenly this car pulls up outside, and he went, crap, quick, get your coat on, we'll go out the back door. And she's like, why? And he went, just do it. So she said, I stood up and I'm like, well, what's your problem? It's your house. And in walks this couple, this pensioner couple, and they goes, who's she? And he's, oh, no, oh. It turns out it's his parents' house, and he doesn't have a house. He lives at home with his mum and dad, and he was in his 30s. And he stood there he was trying to get her into bed, wasn't he? You know, like in his mum's house, and they came back early, and he was like mortified, and he's like, oh. And she went, hang on a minute. So this isn't your house? And he went, her mother went, no, it's not, it's mine. It's mine and my husband's. He doesn't pay rent. She said, he doesn't even work. Oh, you don't work? Well, I'm in between jobs, he said. And she went, well, that ain't what you've said. And then Mum goes, have you got my car keys? And what car key? My car keys. So he didn't even have a car. So he lied about everything. Absolutely everything. So when she came back, this is the funniest part of the story. She came back and had a go at me for fixing it with him. She said he was a crud. She said, I've never in my life been out with anyone so flipping lying and boring. She said, flipping heck, Kelly. And I went, don't blame me. He was the one lying. But it was funny because she fell out with me over it. Because she thought that I'd set her up with a creep. And it was supposed to be me meeting him. So this dating agency was just a flop, a big time. And they phoned me up one day on my house phone. It used to be a BT line then. And she says to me, how's your experience? How do you rate it? I said, I just don't. I said, everybody lies. And she went, yeah, I know. I said, they lie about the age, the height, the status, the jobs, everything. She said, I know. I said, I don't think I'm going to bother with it anymore. And she went, we can give you an extended offer where you just stay on it for free for the rest of your life. I said, well, that doesn't sound good, does it? If I'm going to be stuck on here for the rest of my life, that means I'm not going to be meeting no one. I met some right ones, and I'm trying to think back if I met anybody who didn't lie, and I'm struggling to remember one, because they all did. They all lied. But lie about stuff you can't lie about, like your height and your age. You can't say I'm 35 if you're 55, because you're not going to look it, are you? And you're not going to get away with it. But there was one guy I met, and we ended up sitting in a car park in his car chatting, and I ended up basically saving his marriage, because he tells me he was separated, but he wasn't. He was wanting an affair. And he said, we've got this daughter who's really hard work, and me and my wife don't talk anymore, all we do is argue. And he told me all his life story, and then he was crying. And he said, I've lost my wife because of my kid, because we can't have any time alone. So I ended up counselling him, and by the end of it he said, do you know what, I'm going to give it another go with my wife. And I went, good. When I went back to my friends, they were laughing. They went, you went on a date with a married man and fixed his marriage? I said, yeah, it's my good deed for today. But no. So I was just laughing about it with this thing that I was listening to on YouTube about really bad first dates. But there's so many of them, and it's just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, even now, I honestly don't know why people lie about who they are, because you're going to get found out, aren't you? Just But anyway, I thought I'd share some of them. I've got loads more. I might tell someone another day, but I'm going to get off because the sun is still shining. I've got sunburn on my arm, so I'm on fire. So if it gets cold in here, I'll be alright for a few hours, because I've got my own heat. I'll see you later.